Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. So we entered this happy Monday. I always usually say happy Monday with an unhappy event, actually, that occurred yesterday at approximately 2 p.m. Houston, Texas time. And it was what we've become known as an active shooter. And in these cases, we've just become too familiar in this country with what an active shooter is. An active shooter is someone that goes into a location and really just for either mental health reasons that they're not all there, or political ideology, go into a location and basically shoot up the location until they're stopped or neutralized by law enforcement. And in these cases, they're either stopped or, in a very high percentage of these cases, after the shooting, they commit suicide. In this case, we'll get into it a little deeper, but the female shooter, who is yet to be identified, was neutralized or shot dead by two off-duty law enforcement officers who were working security inside this church. So many times you've heard security experts recommend that in locations where there are large gatherings of people, that they have some type of armed security that can intervene in a situation like this. And that's what exactly these two off-duty law enforcement officers who were working security at this church, the Lakewood Church, they did intervene. And by doing so, they undoubtedly saved tens, 15, 20, 30 lives. Unknown how much ammunition this female shooter had with us. We're just told right now that she was in possession of a long gun and that she fired, the estimate right now is at least 12 shots. So it could have been, and they always say, oh, it could have been much, much worse. And if not for these two officers, off-duty officers, actively working security at this church, it could have been much, much better. So, folks, we're going to get into this case. Hold on to your hats, your seats. You're about to enter true crime from a police perspective, and of course, off the cuff. So you're about to enter the police off the cuff zone. There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped in 10th and Ranch Microbizer.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger.
Folks, right now, in regards to this active shooter case, of course, that happened at the Joel Osteen Lakewood Church in Houston, there's not a great deal of information. The female shooter has yet to be identified. It's very clear that law enforcement at this point knows who she is because they've identified her home in a suburb, and they've already conducted a search warrant. However, they have yet to release her name. The bizarre thing about this shooting is that she entered the church with a 5-year-old boy. And that boy, at this point, is in critical condition. And unknown whether that 5-year-old boy was struck with the active shooter, the female active shooter's rounds, or he was shot as an unintended target by the security officers who took down this active shooter. And then there's also one other man who was in this church who was shot, and he's apparently in stable condition. The 5-year-old boy at this point is in critical condition, and we'll find out more about that. This is a picture on the screen of the press conference. This is according the way the New York Times covered it yesterday. Boy is critically wounded in shooting at Houston church led by Joel Osteen. A woman entered the Lakewood Church, a mega church in Houston, with a rifle and opened fire, officials said. Off-duty officers shot and killed her. The off-duty officers, of course, were working as private security for this church. A boy was critically wounded, and of course this was yesterday, Sunday afternoon, after a woman opened fire at a Christian megachurch in Houston led by Joel Osteen, the televangelist and pastor, the authorities said. At just before 2 p.m., the woman holding a rifle, wearing a trench coat, and carrying a backpack entered Lakewood Church, among the largest congregations in the United States. She came with a boy of about 4 or 5 years old. This is according to Chief Troy Finner of the Houston Police Department. 2 off-duty law enforcement officers who were working at the church on Sunday shot and killed the woman after she opened fire, according to Chief Finner. The boy was also shot, though it's unclear by whom. He was in critical condition at a hospital. A man in his mid-50s who was shot in the leg was hospitalized in stable condition, according to the chief. The woman, who was described by officials as being in her 30s, also threatened that she had a bomb and appeared to have sprayed an unidentified substance on the ground. And this is according to Chief Finner. The authorities did not find any explosives. She had a long gun. It could have been a lot worse, according to the chief. The motive for the shooting was unclear. The shooting took place as a Spanish language service was beginning. The church, which is attended each week by 45,000 people, draws an even larger audience for Mr. Osteen's sermons online and on television. Videos posted to the church social media appeared to show congregants standing and cheering early on Sunday as a band played on stage. Another showed Mr. Osteen, who was the son of Lakewood's founder and took over the church in 1999, addressing congregants. Mr. Osteen is one of the country's best-known preachers in the prosperity gospel movement, which teaches that God materially rewards people who are faithful to him. His sermons are known for being simple, upbeat, and bordering on self-help. According to Osteen said, "I'm in a fog, but we're going to stay strong." He said that right after at a news conference. There are forces of evil, but the forces of God are stronger than that. The church's website said Sunday evening's regularly scheduled online service had been canceled. So some people inside the church reported hearing gunshots and could smell gun smoke. So that's according to the New York Times. There's not a great deal of more information relative to the investigation, to this investigation of the shooting at this church. There is now a report by ABC News that is saying that on the Lakewood shooter, referring to the woman, had a pro-Palestinian message written on her gun. A pro-Palestinian message was written on the gun used by a woman accused of firing rounds at Joel Osteen's Lakewood Church on Sunday. 2 sources briefed on the preliminary investigation told ABC News. Further detail about what exactly the message read was not released. The investigation into the motive of the shooting is still ongoing. Detectives believe as many as 12 shots were fired, and investigators are actively reviewing a history of arrests they believe the suspect has on her record. So the police obviously know who the perpetrator is. They know who the female shooter is. In these cases, it's amazing to me how fast law enforcement identifies the shooter, is able to conduct law enforcement activities. For example, a search warrant of the shooter's house. Now, if she had a pro-Palestinian message written on that rifle, is this a politically motivated attack? She told the two off-duty officers, apparently as they approached her, she was still alive, and she said that she had explosives in her car. However, a search of the car didn't find any explosives. So some of those things, we talk about an active shooter, and we've seen active shooters. The last one in Houston was Uvalde, which was horrific. The shooting at that school, where law enforcement was heavily criticized for not taking quick action to thwart the gunman. Going back, the history of active shooters, and of course, we think of Columbine and the two students, Harris and Klebold, that apparently were bullied and went to the school with semi-automatic weapons and bombs and all kinds of things. Since that occurrence, law enforcement has come a long way in the training and in responding to active shooters. Just in this church alone, and I would say thank the Lord, it's appropriate to say in this case that there were off-duty officers that were employed by the church that were armed and took this active shooter down, took this woman down, and she was not able to do the damage that she surely would have done if there was no armed officers within that church. And whether you're, pro Second Amendment or not, this shows that type of response does in fact work. So,
female shooter shot dead. Maria Villarreal has that story.
Chaos erupting at Joel Osteen's Houston megachurch, Lakewood, after a barrage of gunfire.
So a barrage of gunfire at that church. You can see the pictures on.
I was just walking up the stairs, and when it got,
people
when I got
attending
on the
church.
top, like,
Horrific.
They started shooting. I don't
See, when you're in a church that large, also, no one knows where the gunshots, in fact, are coming from.
know. Like, I just heard, but it was like more than 10 shots.
Levi Andrade capturing the moment shots rang out.
So they said at least 12 shots were fired. You can hear it. You could hear it on this tape. Gunfire in the background.
The shooter taken down, but during
Of course, we know that during this shooting, a 5-year-old boy was struck, and that is never okay. And apparently that young boy came with the shooter to the location. So the shooter brought a young boy with
shot,
her.
now in critical condition.
We need to ambulance for the child.
All of this unfolding just before Spanish service was set to start, with hundreds of parishioners in attendance.
She entered the building. She was armed with a long rifle and a trench coat with a backpack, accompanied by a small child, approximately 4 to 5 years old.
Dozens of first responders on scene as parents reunited with their children.
This is my church home. I go here every Sunday. You know what I'm saying? I'm praying right now for our pastor.
Despite the shooter claiming to have a bomb in her backpack, investigators did not find anything. In fact, law enforcement says this could have been way worse had it not been for the heroic actions of 2 off-duty officers quickly stepping in. As of right now, they are not speculating on her motive, but say they do believe she acted alone. Robin?
All right, Maria, thank you.
So, they don't know specifically a motive, but as ABC News reported today, she had a pro-Palestinian message on the rifle that she was carrying. So whether or not this is politically motivated, we don't know for sure. And a photograph on the screen right now, you're looking at the front of Joel Osteen's Lakewood Church. They said this church is so large that 45,000 people a week attend services at this location. We know that Joel Osteen is a very popular televangelist. Was it coincidental that this active shooter chose this location? Could this active shooter be a parishioner at this location? Could this active shooter have some kind of revenge motive against the church? None of those questions have been answered yet. And that's part, there's always an active shooter case, there's many parts to it. There's many moving parts. And the big part was the response. And the response to this scene, of course, was done by two heroic off-duty officers, one from Houston Police Department and the one from TABC. I'm not sure what that acronym means, but they together took down the shooter, preventing potentially mass carnage at this location. The second part of this, of course, is the uniform patrol response to the scene. When they respond to the scene, there's many things to do besides, and of course, to secure the location, to find out if there's any other shooters, to make sure and certify that the location is safe through their response. Then, of course, the first thing upon is to get secure help for the wounded and injured in this situation. And from what we found out, the shooter, a female between the age of 30 and 35, that's what we're being told. She's yet to be identified, that she was killed on the scene. And then a 5-year-old boy who apparently was brought to the scene by the shooter. He's in critical condition in an area hospital. And a third victim, a 50-something-year-old man, also unidentified, is apparently in stable condition at a local hospital. So very little information is gotten out so far.
The band was practicing before the service. So we hear like a shot, but we thought that was the band, the battery. We thought that was that. But after that, we hear 2 and 3 times more. After that, we saw that everyone was running. So we started to run on the back side, and we just lay in the floor. We called 911, and we still hear like maybe 10 shots more like this.
And there were, my brother says that there was a bullet in the screen. Yeah. We're not sure, but like.
So we spent like 3 minutes. I don't know how long was it. I was in shock. Someone from the staff let us know that the police was on this side and just evacuate us from.
So this is someone, a parishioner, who was on the scene. She's describing what she heard, the shots being fired.
We spent like maybe 2 minutes go outside, and we spent 5 waiting there. Then everyone just have to walk over there.
Okay, so you were during, like, the service was happening when you were inside.
So the woman was at the service. She hears gunshots. People, of course, you can imagine the panic when someone, especially inside a church, who's expecting, as they're worshiping their religion, their God, that someone comes in and starts shooting people. It's just something that cannot be managed. Rosina Valdivia, who shot the child, the police or the woman? Rosina, undetermined at this point. Is there a potential that the child could have been shot by the off-duty officers returning fire at the active shooter? There is, but it's too early. I can't make that call. I don't know. The police are still investigating the scene. Apparently, they haven't spoke about how that occurred or who shot it. Wilesy Pony. So the shooter used the child as a human shield. Eileen Wilesy, that's a possibility. We don't know, but we know that she brought the child into the church with her. Was it considered to be, or Did she intend it to be a shield? Unknown at this point. But yeah, why would you bring? The shooter knew what her intention was. Why would you bring a young child with you to do this horrible deed that you intended to do once you reached that church? Someone in the chat mentioned alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. Yes, and there are many partners on this. Linda Cosma, member for 12 months. Thank you, Bill. Your wisdom comforts. Well, Linda, thank you so much. Thank you for being a member of our channel members on Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. Very, very, very much appreciated. As all our subscribers, our friends, our Police Off the Cuff family here, thank you so much. Sana Elise Hoth Johnson, thank you again for the 9 super sticker. Very much appreciated. Thank you. You're a very loyal subscriber, fan, friend. You know, one of the biggest things with these active shooter situations of Ken is the investigation of them. And it's so important. And when law enforcement speaks about our partners, they're being very sincere. And in this, they have, of course, local and federal partners. The federal partners being alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, who are the gun experts. They're federal. It's a federal agency. Whenever you hear a federal law enforcement, we in local law enforcement, I consider myself was local with the NYPD. We know the feds got lots of money. So why wouldn't you allow them and encourage them, of course, in a situation like that? They're deployed here without local law enforcement asking. Why wouldn't the Houston police immediately call in the FBI, call in the ATF, call in Border Patrol, call in all of these law enforcement partners to assist in what could be and what apparently will be a lengthy investigation that could touch upon a lot of different areas. We just heard ABC News say, or they were reportedly saying that the Lakeland church shooter had a pro-Palestinian message written on her gun. So was this a politically motivated attack? And this was just from ABC News. A pro-Palestinian, and there's a picture of Joel Osteen on the screen. A pro-Palestinian message was written on the gun used by a woman accused of firing rounds at Joel Osteen's Lakewood Church on Sunday. 2 sources briefed on the preliminary investigation told ABC News. Further detail about what exactly the message read was not released. The investigation into the motive of the shooting is still ongoing. Detectives, again, I mentioned this before, they believe as many as 12 shots were fired, and investigators are actively reviewing a history of arrest they believe the suspect has on her record. 2 people, including a 5-year-old boy, were shot and are in the hospital. The shooting happened, of course, during a Spanish language service, could be heard on the church's live stream. Overnight, agents with the FBI, the Texas Rangers, ATF raided a Conroe home believed to be connected to the suspect. Video from the scene shows a large enforcement presence. The woman, who officials said was in her early 30s, has not yet been identified. You can bet law enforcement know exactly who she is. Houston police said the woman, who had a 5-year-old boy with her, walked inside Lakewood Church at 1:53 p.m. Sunday wearing a trench coat and armed with a long rifle. She reportedly started shooting immediately. A Houston police officer and a TABC agent who were working off-duty inside the church quickly opened fire, killing the woman. As the woman went down, officers reported that she threatened to have a bomb. Officers with the bomb squad searched her car and backpack and found no explosives. The 5-year-old boy who was with the woman was shot as of Monday morning. The child's in critical condition at an area hospital. A 57-year-old man was also shot in the leg. Authorities said it's unclear who fired the shots that hit the child and the man. So that's not clear. So many different things go through our minds in these situations. And some of the things that I believe that you should have on your mind in these situations is whenever you go to any type of event, you should always make a note of entrances and exits. And why do I say that? Well, because when something like this happened, do you want to just stay there like a sitting duck? Or do you want to know how to get the hell out of there and get to safety? Absolutely. You want us to know. So wherever you go, whether it's a church, a movie theater, a concert, a baseball game, something in an open field that's has a crowd, just note to yourself how, if something bad happened, how would I get out of here? Which way would I go? Which is the fastest and safest way? And if that way is blocked, what's the secondary location I should go to? All of those things you should think of. I used to think of it in security, you say areas of egress and exit, right? How do you get in? Again, Sana Elise Hoth Johnson, thank you so much. Like your dog. I love the color of the meme here. Very, very nice. Melissa Stiller, good to see you. Hello at Police Off the Cuff. Great to see you guys in the chat. These active shooter situations happen so often that we must be trained ourselves as citizens of the world and citizens of this country, of course, where probably guns are much more prevalent than anywhere else in the world. I think people that watch us, people from Europe, they see this and they question it's, someone just mentioned something in the chat, and I'm not going to repeat what they said, but I understand where they're coming from. Because this is political in nature, that this active shooter may turn out to have been motivated by politics and the pro-Palestinian message that was apparently written on her long gun. That's not being confirmed by anyone. This was leaked to ABC News. So we don't know the ins and outs. We don't know, in fact, what happened. But is that maybe why law enforcement is not releasing this? Because they've been told, let's not put this politically incendiary possibility of the politics involved in this. Let's not put it out there yet until we, in fact, confirm it. Apparently, the woman who is the shooter, who law enforcement fully knows who she is, they've gone to a house. They've conducted a search warrant. Apparently, has an arrest record. And when we talk about the investigation of these things, it's really purely amazing to me at how quickly law enforcement gets these people identified. Did she come to this church? Did she make it easy? Did she have ID on her? That would still have to be vetted. Did she pull up in a car? I doubt she walked there. And she alluded to her car having explosives inside it. Apparently, that was not true. That's where also the investigations could start. This is her car. It's registered to so-and-so. That registration comes back to a house at this location. Let's present these facts to a judge. We need to get a search warrant. If there are explosives, or in these investigations, sometimes when someone does something horrific like this, you also search the house because they may have killed someone else. They may have killed family members, a loved one. And that is part of investigation 101, believe it or not. Always search the perpetrator's house. What is in it? Now, she also left a trail of who she is through having an arrest record, which means her photograph, her prints, potentially her DNA is collected by law enforcement. So they can identify it. They can potentially identify family members, or if she has any ties to political organizations, subversive groups. If she does have ties to a pro-Palestinian organization, do they now need to worry about this in the future? The church. Does the church have to worry about this? These are all things that law enforcement has to think about when they do this investigation. Linda Cosma, Thank you for being a member, a channel member. Thank you, Bill, for your wisdom comforts. Thank you very much. I'm just trying to say what, and I know what law enforcement is doing right now. They're trying to get to the bottom of this, and they're also trying to potentially prevent any future active shootings that could occur. Because, as I said, is this woman, the yet to be unnamed woman, entered the church in a long overcoat, had a long gun, had a 5-year-old boy with her? Is she part of any political organization that has espoused hatred to Jews, has espoused hatred to the United States, has indicated any indication of committing violence? All of those questions we want to know the answers to. We absolutely want to know what the heck happened here. And that's part of these active shooter investigations. They can't just stop at finding out who she is. They can't just stop at knowing just a very little bit about this. They got to keep digging and finding out if there's anyone else that's involved in this. And that's law enforcement's job. And when we talk about law enforcement partners, the FBI, the ATF, the Houston police, potentially Border Patrol, because it's right near these areas. Wowsy Pony, you can hear it as the Spanish pastor is speaking on a tape there. You can hear the shots being fired. And, when you talk about going to a place of worship, the worst, and this has happened before in churches, people at their most vulnerable inside a church, people worshiping at their church. And I think that in this country, we need to recognize that churches and synagogues and mosques, they are potentially targets. Erica Olson, whose child was he? Erica, those are some of the things in this investigation that law enforcement has yet to release. They've yet to tell us whose child is that. Could this child belong to the shooter? Imagine that. Imagine an active shooter, fully knowing what her intentions are, brings her child to the active shooting with her. And again, I don't know if that child is her child, but whose child is it? And this woman, this 30 to 35-year-old woman wearing a trench coat who is yet to be identified by law enforcement, why did she bring a child to this? Why did she do this horrific act to begin with? But knowing that she was going to do this horrific act, why did she bring a young child with her to the location? Knowing that something horrible could happen to this young child, and apparently it did. And we don't know, was the child shot by law enforcement? That's a potential. The child could have been shot by the off-duty officers.
Jumping into action. Here's ABC's Allison Cossack with the details.
Gunfire erupting Sunday afternoon at Joel Osteen's Houston megachurch, Lakewood.
We're shooting at Lakewood. 2 people down. We need an ambulance.
The terrifying moment unfolding just as an afternoon Spanish service was about to begin. Hundreds of parishioners inside when shots rang out.
We were sitting there with my mom, and they started shooting, and we went scared, and then we went to the chairs to try to protect us, and then everybody was crazy, running and walking all the way.
Authorities say the suspected shooter, a woman, walked into the church accompanied by a small child.
She was armed with a long rifle and a trench coat with a backpack. Once she entered, at some point she began.
So she entered, and at some point she pulled out the gun. She started to fire, and she was quickly neutralized by the officers, the off-duty officers.
Off-duty officers on the scene immediately.
So they immediately took action.
Engaged the suspect, striking her.
She's deceased here on the scene. Unfortunately, a 5-year-old kid was hit and is in critical condition at our local hospital.
Another person, a 57-year-old man, was shot in the leg and is recovering from his injuries. Lakewood Pastor Joel Osteen thanked the officers and is grateful the situation wasn't worse.
We don't understand why all these things happen, but we know God's in control. And we're going to pray for that little 5-year-old boy and pray for the lady that was deceased.
Police said before she died, the suspect claimed to have explosives in her possession. Hazmat teams called to the scene to ensure the public safety.
I can safely say that we have not found anything that is of concern to our community or to this location.
The police chief commending the officers who reacted so quickly.
She had a long gun, and it could have been a lot worse, but they stepped up and they did their job, and I want to thank them for that.
Allison Cossack, ABC.
So amazing. You know, folks, we all, I should never say we all, but a lot of you are familiar with the Uvalde active shooter. And that was one of the most horrific responses ever by law enforcement in this country. And kids and teachers were needlessly killed because of an absolutely horrific response by law enforcement. So every once in a while, when you get an amazing response by law enforcement, which were off-duty law enforcement working security inside this church, they neutralized the shooter. And that's a kind word, neutral, for they shot and killed the shooter. The military and law enforcement likes to use those sort of antiseptic words. She was neutralized, you know. Daddy Crab, thank you for the 199 super sticker. 72-hour rule, much more will be revealed soon. Absolutely. Law enforcement does not want to release things that turn out not to be true. And whenever there's a political component to something, they're very careful with how much they release. They want to be 100% sure that the information that they release is active, because you always hear when law enforcement gives these press conferences that, please, everyone, understand that the information that we are disseminating is what we know right now and is subject to change. Because when I worked for the NYPD, people always wanted things so quickly. And I could tell them, I could give you information right now, but it won't be correct, because we don't know yet. So I don't know what to tell you, all right? If you want quick information, it's not going to be accurate. And so therefore, I'm not giving you quick information till we know. We can't release something we don't know yet. So law enforcement is busy crossing their T's, dotting their I's, getting this investigation together. Again, this is an active shooting, an active shooter who was taken down, who was, to use the antiseptic word, she was neutralized. She was killed. Unfortunately, a 5-year-old boy that came into the church with this woman who was an active shooter, as we know, she came into the church with this young boy, and he's in critical condition right now. And you see on the screen the Lakewood Church. I just want to tell the active shooter, there is actually an agreed upon definition issued by the U.S. government on the definition of an active shooter. And the agreed upon definition of an active shooter by the U.S. government agencies, including the White House, U.S. Department of Justice, the FBI, U.S. Department of Education, U.S. Department of Homeland Security, and Federal Emergency Management Agency, and this is the definition, is an individual actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a confined and populated area. In most cases, active shooters use firearms, and there is no pattern or method to their selection of victims. Active shooter situations are unpredictable and evolve quickly, because active shooting situations are often over within 10 to 15 minutes before law enforcement arrives on the scene. Individuals must be prepared both mentally and physically to deal with an active shooter. In most cases, active shooters, of course, use firearms, and there's no pattern or method to their selection of victims. Individuals have been known to act without firearms. Such was the case in April 2014 at Franklin Regional High School, where 21 students were stabbed. It's for this reason that the acronym ALICE uses the term active killer, violent intruder, and active assailant. So I just wanted folks to know that definition. One of the reasons is because what has government done and what has law enforcement done for the public and to the potential victim of an active shooter? Well, what they've done is said, look, you're involved. You're actively involved for your own safety. Do not sit there like a sitting duck. Take action. Attack the active shooter. Actually, it sounds crazy. Years ago, they would have never have said that. But with so many active shootings, so many victims, they came up with this, that, you know something, the active shooter is going to keep shooting and killing people until he or she is stopped. So you must become part of your own defense. So would-be victims, do not sit there and be a victim. Do not be a victim. Protect yourself. Protect your family members. Protect your wife. Protect your kids. Take action. And you may say, oh, this is crazy. I'm going to take action against someone with a firearm. Well, you might be the person that distracts that active shooter enough that saves 10, 50, or takes down the active shooter so some other people can tackle the person to the ground. So all of these things came out, and, you know, years ago, people were just taught, to sit there and be a victim, you know? So that's not what you want to do. You want to take an active role in defending yourself, an active role in defending the people around you. These are horrific situations. However, we've seen so many active shooters across this country, and I mentioned Uvalde, of course, the active shooter in that school that law enforcement had such a horrific response to. And on the screen, you see Joel Osteen and, of course, Houston's Mayor John Whitmore. And, you know, after all of these shooting incidents, they usually give a speech of unity and of togetherness and of partnerships with law enforcement, and one, of course, of healing, because that's what we all want. We want prayers and we want healing after a situation like this. Will people ever feel confident enough to go back into that church after they saw an active shooter, open up on the congregation and two brave law enforcement officers that were working security? Will they feel confident enough that they'll be protected in the future? And again, my hat goes off to those two off-duty law enforcement officers, one from Houston PD and one from TABC, who confronted the active shooter. Nothing more brave than that. And they took the active shooter down and potentially saved so many more lives. And that's the name of the game in this, is to stop the active shooter. Intervene in this, save people's lives. And we're now, of course, what they talk about as the healing phase of an active shooter. It almost seems too quick. One day at 2 o'clock, 1:57 in the afternoon, 1:56 in the afternoon, a shooting takes place at a house of worship. And the next day, people are talking about healing already, right? Human beings, can we heal that quickly? I guess we can certainly begin the process, right? But do we heal that quickly? I think it takes a long time to heal from something like this, you know? I don't think you just heal overnight, right? Pammy, it does to someone who values being perceived as virtuous for self-worth or over actually being a good person. Ty's Kitchen. This is Texas. It will be a packed house. Ty's Kitchen. That's the spirit, right? Texas is a tough state. You know, people, you know, it's our state. It's our country. That's the mentality they have. And you're right. This is Texas. It'll be a packed house. And no one's going to stop us from going to church. And Ty's Kitchen, that's a fantastic perspective, a fantastic point of view. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime, true crime stories. If you like true crime and real crime from a police perspective, then you're in the right place. And if you're not subscribed to us, go on our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell, share us with your friends and your family, and we'll spread the word nationally and internationally of true crime from a police perspective. And if you want to contribute to us, we appreciate all our Patreon fans, all our YouTube channel members, but you can contribute to us on Patreon, where we have 3 different levels, and you can contribute to us on YouTube, where we have 5 different levels. And we so appreciate all our subscribers and all our channel members and just all the people that are subscribed to us on YouTube and share us with their friends and family. So I when I saw this active shooting situation, you know, many people yesterday at around 2:00, of course, were getting ready to watch the 6:30 Super Bowl. Maybe they were attending Super Bowl parties, and then something horrific like this happens to interrupt Super Sunday, you know, and just sort of jolted back into reality of things that could happen. And this, of course, flashed across the screen, shooting at Joel Osteen's Houston church. And the term active shooter has become part of our vernacular in this country. And I think rather than denying that it is it's a real thing, we need to prepare for it and train for it, and not become victims of an active shooter. Protect each other, you know. In New York City, there's a famous expression that came after 9/11, and it's up all over the place, and it says, if you see something, say something. You think any friends or family members of this yet unidentified female active shooter that went into this church, you think any of them witnessed some behavior that perhaps they could have reported to somebody? You think perhaps they witnessed some mental health breakdown, but perhaps they witnessed some radicalization? Someone's telling me that they've just identified the woman. I didn't see it. I'll check and see. We put Joel Osteen on the screen. I didn't see that it was listed anywhere, but if I can pull it up, I'll surely pull it up. Because they knew who she was rather quickly, but yet they have yet to identify her that I had seen. Yeah, they're still, from what I'm seeing, they're just identifying her as a female between the ages of 30 and 35. If anyone sees it and wants to post it in the chat, what her name is, they're not. I don't see it posted yet. So, look, as I said, the most important thing is that law enforcement know who she is, and because they can continue the investigation, knowing her name, and the investigation can proceed, and hopefully, Schmitty, someone, Schmitty, who I trust and is one of our good fans, good subscribers on the show, they're listing her name as Genesee Yvonne Moreno. I don't know. When she was identified, they said that she did have some criminal history, and I don't know if they're sharing all of that yet. Talks to Angels again. Genesee Moreno. We're getting the shooter's name. The shooter, of course, now. Grizzy from Grizzy's Hood News had all this information last night when FBI was at the house. So was Grizzy. But you know something, you cannot release someone's name until it's confirmed. I will never release it until it's confirmed, and I trust Schmitty confirmed by law enforcement, because if you throw out names, which has been done numerous times, there's been names of suspects, and that turned out not to be the suspect. And it was all over social media. It was all over YouTube. And then it turned out not to be the person. So I think that you sort of have to wait until the person is officially identified by law enforcement. And then we can go. And it sounds like there's a bigger story, a backstory to this. But I'm not going to report things that I can't confirm right now. I'm on the air. So T.D. Lewis, we're hearing some in the chat. There's some allegations that she was a transgender, but all of that stuff will be verified. Schmitty, yes, criminal history, born as a man, Jeffrey Escalante. So all of this information will be no doubt released right now. I don't think we can just put it out there because we don't know enough about it to discuss it. Okay, the news, T.D. Lewis has now released it. Okay, great. But as I said, it's not that important for me to be first and then potentially put out incorrect information. I'd rather be correct and err on the side of having the correct information. Now it seems that this is confirmed by the news media, and this will be another big story. You always have to question, though, when law enforcement doesn't put out something right away. Potentially there is a reason, and that reason potentially can be that the story is of a political nature that they don't want to put out there until they can actually confirm it. Folks, if you're looking for a great attorney in the New York metropolitan area, then Joe Murray is your man. Joe Murray is a retired NYPD police officer and a fantastic defense attorney. You can call Joe on his cell phone at 718-514-3855. Email him at joe@jmurray-law.com, or go on his website, jmurray-law.com. Not only is Joe a fabulous defense attorney, but he's also a huge supporter of the Police Off the Cuff podcast. There's a picture of Joe Murray on the screen. And we appreciate everything Joe has done and will continue to do, hopefully, for the Police Off the Cuff podcast. So, folks, that's really the show. The investigation, of course, is ongoing. There's new information breaking. Is there a political part to this story based on the fact that there was a pro-Palestinian message written on the rifle? Cali WM Semper Fi. Will the government classify this trans shooter as a female? They would be a falsehood that skews the stats regarding mass shooters and who they are. You know, I can't really answer that right now. I don't know if they in fact know how they will classify this. Thank God it appears that no one was killed by this active shooter. And that's all we can say right now. T.D. Lewis, that makes perfect sense. Thank you for breaking that down. I could not understand why none of our local news stations weren't released in this information. Well, you know something, even, I think YouTube content creators, and we have a responsibility too, that you don't just throw something out there. You could turn someone's life upside down through putting their name out there as having done something, and they're innocent totally innocent. I had nothing to do with it. And I've seen it done in the 4 years that I've been doing, being a content creator on YouTube. I'm very reluctant to put anything out there until it's verified by news. You see news organizations all the time trying to be first. And by trying to be first, they make a huge, huge mistake. So, folks, that's our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in during the afternoon hours. Some of you guys are available, and I appreciate you coming on the show and or coming to watch the show. And if we get any new information, if there's any still a lot of interest in this story, maybe because it's Joel Osteen's church, and it's a church period, that things like this shouldn't occur in a church. Folks, so thank you so much. I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. Have a great day, everyone, and God bless.
One episode just ain't enough.